Okay, so this will be the last archetype analysis for another good while. And yeah, this is another tech archetype, just like the previous three entries in the series. They were used by two users throughout Duel Monsters and GX. The first user being Yami Bakura, and the second user being a pair of Labyrinth brothers. So yeah. It consists of 7 cards, 5 spells and 2 traps, and some of the cards in this archetype see competitive play even to this day, and one of them is actually limited. So let's take a look at them. And we start off with the very first Designator card, at least I believe it's the very first Designator card, that being Dark Designator. It allows you to declare a monster card name, and if the card is in the opponent's deck, they can add it to their hand. Now, newer players might think that this is absolutely one of the worst effects in the game, because why the hell would you give your opponent free resources? But this kind of card is actually pretty valuable nowadays, since you can actually make the opponent search a hand trap and then use stuff like Mind Crush or any other cards which discard stuff from the opponent's hand in order to get rid of that hand trap. For example, this thing is very useful against Nibiru, so yeah. I can somewhat see people citing this thing in order to get rid of Nibiru and secure their special summons for the turn. So yeah, even though it's very old and yeah, it didn't basically see much competitive play before, it sure as hell might see some competitive play nowadays because of all the hand trap shenanigans that the meta has gotten itself into. So yeah. Next up, we have a Bissell Designator, which allows you to pay 1000 life points and declare a type and attribute, and your opponent must send one monster with both the declared type and attribute from their hand or deck to the graveyard. If you haven't watched my Vampire archetype analysis, I suggest you do so, because I go into a very clear detail why this effect sucks ass. So yeah, you shouldn't probably ever run it, unless you're specifically going against a deck which does not want some stuff to be in the graveyard, which is very rare nowadays. And this card also has an upgraded form, aka a retrain, in form of the Herald of the Abyss. This one allows you to pay 1500 life points and declare a monster type and attribute, just like the first version. And your opponent must send one face-up monster with the declared type and attribute from their field to the graveyard if possible, and for the rest of this turn, your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters with that sent monster's name, and you can only activate one of these per turn. So yeah, sending stuff from the field to the graveyard is actually much more impactful than sending the stuff from the deck to the graveyard, unless you specifically know what you're doing. And this can actually, if timed right or if played right, this can actually get rid of very powerful beat sticks and lockdown monsters. So yeah, this is actually a much more playable card than its original form. So yeah. Next up, we have a card which you should be very familiar with at this point, since it's limited on the ban list, and that is Called by the Grave. This is a quick play, and it's actually not a Designator card by name, but it's related to the thing, so we're putting it here. It allows you to target a monster in your opponent's graveyard and banish it, and if you do, until the end of the next turn, its effects are negated, as well as deactivated effects and effects on the field of the monsters with the same original name. So yeah, this another completely obvious thing to note is that this thing can completely shut down hand traps. Well, hand traps that are activated via discarding to the graveyard and not like played on the field, such as Evenly Matched or other stuff like that, or Red Reboot, for example. So yeah, and also the only downside is that it specifically has to target a monster in order to activate its effect, which is not too big of a deal, since the majority of hand traps are monsters. But some hand traps, such as, for example, Nibiru, can still activate its effects with no problem, even if you have a copy of this, because Nibiru does not go to the graveyard in order to activate its effect. So yeah, still, it's a fantastic card, and you should definitely run the one copy you currently can in the TCG. And our next card is actually a somewhat an upgraded form of Call by the Grave, and that is Crossout Designator. It's another quick play spell which allows you to declare a card name and banish one of that declared cards from your main deck. And if you do, negate its effect, as well as the activated effects and effects on the field of cards with that same original name until the end of the turn, and cannot be activated. So, yeah. You can only activate one of these per turn, and yeah, this is literally a straight upgrade over the over the Call by the Grave, because the pool of stuff it can negate is much bigger at the cost of you needing to run some of that stuff yourself, because it requires banishing of that stuff from your main deck in order to fulfill this card's effect. Meaning the only thing you can actually negate is main deck stuff, because if you could actually negate extra deck stuff, it might actually be banned because of how versatile then it could be. So yeah, this one is unlimited. So yeah, you can definitely run 3 of these if your opponent is very hand trap heavy. So yeah, and those were all the spells. Now it's time for trap cards, the first of which we have Armageddon Designator. It's a normal trap which allows you to banish one card from your hand, and neither player can activate cards or the effects of cards with that name for the rest of the duel. Okay, so obviously, as you can see from the artwork, it's based on Armageddon Knight, which is a very popular level 4 Dark Warrior, which is currently limited on the ban list. And yeah, this is actually a very powerful disabling effect, since it basically shuts down any card which you might have trouble with, mainly hand traps, I will believe, for the rest of the duel. Again, it can only then stop main deck stuff, which if we could possibly stop extra deck stuff, it might be a bit too broken. And it's also kind of overbalanced by the fact that it's a trap card, and yeah, trap cards are slower by spells by nature, so yeah, the best way to probably activate it is to send it to the graveyard with Foolish Burial Goods and then activate a second copy of it with Trap Trick. So yeah, you can also activate multiple of these in one turn even, so you can actually shut down a total of 3 hand traps or any cards which you might be playing against for the rest of the duel. So yeah, again, run by preference, since this thing can actually be a bit too slow sometimes to trigger, and again, it requires you to run stuff that you want to negate yourself. So yeah. And our last card for today is a Pointer of the Red Lotus, which is another trap card, which this one requires you to pay 2,000 life points and reveal your entire hand. Then look at your opponent's hand and banish one card from their hand until your opponent's next end phase. Yeah, this one actually does see a hefty ton of competitive play, unlike the Armageddon's Designator. Mainly because, first of all, paying 2,000 life points is not too big of a deal, although it can be a bit of a hefty cost to pay at some times. Revealing your entire hand is actually the worst part, the worst thing about this card, because you're actually giving information, card information to your opponent. But I believe you can actually activate this while you have no cards in your hand, so the opponent can't look at anything. And also, this thing reveals the opponent's hand as well, so you're getting some information back yourself. And on top of it all, you can actually snipe one card from his hand, Cyframe Lord Omega style. So, yeah. It's a bit slow, yeah, because it's a trap, but all the benefit it offers, it makes it completely worth it. So, yeah, definitely do run this as a tech option. And that was the Designator archetype. As you can see, it's based on you calling out a specific card name or preventing some cards from your deck or the opponent's graveyard from activating its effects. So yeah, it's basically a counter to everything and anything and everything. So yeah. It can be a very fun, it can be a very necessary, I should say, tech upgrade to your deck, because of all the hand traps running around rampantly in the meta. So yeah, yeah, like I said, this is the last archetype analysis in a good while. I honestly do not know what the next archetype analysis is gonna look like, because I think I've covered absolutely everything now when it comes to anime appearance archetypes. So I think our next archetype analysis might be a new archetype that would be imported from the anime, which was an anime exclusive up until that point. But we'll just have to wait and see. We have two archetype rematch volumes that we need to cover with like 120 new cards, because each volume has 60 cards. So yeah, I have my work cut out for me, and I probably won't be covering the new Archetype rematch stuff until I solve my uploading issue, because those videos might be a bit long. What I will probably be uploading are top 10 lists, which I have planned, the 6 new top 10 lists, which I actually compiled. Some of them have scripts already written, so they are ready to be recorded, and for some of them I still need to write the script. So we'll see when that happens, and I'll most probably want to fix that uploading issue soon, so you'll finally get to see the continuation of the Persona 5 Strikers Let's Play. But until then, thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos and updates. Comment, like, and subscribe. Be sure to check out my Patreon when you got the time. Maybe drop a few donations if you feel like it. And as usual, I'll upload the next vid whenever I can. So see you all and have a good day. Peace.